My name is Shirley, and I am 61 years old. I live alone in a small house in Texas, a widow for 8 years now. My son Derek is everything to me. I raised him, sacrificed for him, gave him every piece of my heart. So when he called asking to borrow my credit card for a family dinner, I said yes without hesitation. What I did not know was that the family dinner he was planning did not include me. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt invisible to the people you love most. 8 years ago, my husband Frank collapsed in our kitchen on a Tuesday morning. One moment, he was pouring coffee, the next, he was on the floor, his hand pressed against his chest. I was a nurse for 35 years, but nothing could have prepared me for watching the man I loved slip away before the ambulance even arrived. He was gone before noon. Just like that, my world shattered into a million pieces. After Frank died, I found myself wandering through our house like a ghost. 3 bedrooms suddenly felt like 30. The silence was so loud it hurt my ears. Every corner held a memory, every photograph a reminder of what I had lost. I would sit at the kitchen table where we used to have breakfast together, staring at the empty chair across from me, waiting for him to walk in and tell me it was all a bad dream. Derek was 30 years old, then already married to Heather for 2 years. He came to the funeral, looking strong, holding my hand, whispering in my ear that everything would be okay. He told me he would take care of me. He said I would never be alone. Those words became my lifeline. I held on to them like a drowning woman holds on to a piece of driftwood. My son loved me. My son would be there for me. That was enough to keep me going. In the beginning, Derek kept his promise. He called every day, sometimes twice. He came over on weekends to mow the lawn or fix things around the house. He would sit with me on the porch, drinking lemonade, telling me about his job at the car dealership where he worked as a sales manager. Those moments were precious to me. They reminded me that even though Frank was gone, I still had family. I still had my boy. But time has a way of changing things, and people have a way of changing with it. Derek met Heather at a company event when he was 28. She was pretty ambitious and came from a different world than ours. Her mother, Gloria, was a wealthy widow who lived in one of those gated communities with manicured lawns and security guards at the entrance. Gloria had inherited money from her late husband, a successful businessman who left her with enough wealth to never work another day in her life. I remember the first time I met Gloria. It was at a dinner to discuss the wedding plans. She walked into my modest living room and looked around with an expression I could not quite read. It was not disgust exactly, but something close to it, like she was calculating the value of everything she saw and finding it lacking. She smiled politely, complimented my curtains, and then spent the rest of the evening talking about the country club where she wanted to host the reception. The wedding was beautiful, held at that fancy country club Gloria loved so much. Frank and I contributed what we could, though it was nothing compared to what Gloria spent. I remember feeling out of place among all those well-dressed guests, wondering if I had worn the right dress, if my shoes were nice enough. But when Derek danced with me to our song, the same song Frank and I had danced to at our own wedding, none of that mattered. My son loved me. That was all I needed to know. After Frank passed away, something shifted in my relationship with Derek. The daily calls became weekly calls. The weekend visits became monthly visits. There was always an excuse, always a reason. Work was busy. The kids had activities. Heather needed him at home. I understood, or at least I told myself I did. He had his own family now, his own responsibilities. I could not expect to be his priority forever. But even as the distance grew, I never stopped giving. When Derek and Heather wanted to buy their first house, they came up short on the down payment. I gave them $15,000 from my savings without asking for a receipt or a repayment plan. It was my pleasure, I told them. What was mine was theirs. When Madison was born, I spent the first 3 months at their house cooking, cleaning, waking up for night feedings so Heather could rest. When Ethan came along 3 years later, I did the same thing. For 5 years, I was their unpaid babysitter. Every weekday morning, I drove 45 minutes to their house to watch the children while Derek and Heather worked. I changed diapers, packed lunches, helped with homework, attended school plays when their parents could not make it. I never asked for gas money. I never complained about the long drives or the exhaustion that settled into my bones at the end of each day. When Derek's car broke down and he could not afford a new one, I bought him a sedan. I called it a birthday present, even though his birthday was 4 months away. When Ethan needed surgery to remove his tonsils and the insurance did not cover everything, I paid the remaining $3,000. When Heather wanted new furniture for their living room and Derek mentioned they were a little tight on money, I wrote them a check. Over the years, the amount I gave to Derek and his family added up to more than $40,000. That was almost everything I had saved from my nursing career, decades of hard work and careful budgeting. But I never regretted it, not once, because that is what mothers do. We give, we sacrifice, we put our children first and ourselves last. And in return, we expect nothing but love. Every Sunday evening, Derek would call. We would talk for 20 or 30 minutes about nothing important. He would tell me about work, about the kids, about his plans for the weekend. I would tell him about my garden, about the ladies at church, about the new recipe I tried. Those calls were the highlight of my week. They reminded me that despite everything, my son still cared. He still thought about me. He was still my boy. I used to brag about Derek to anyone who would listen. My neighbor Patty would come over for coffee, and I would tell her how lucky I was to have such a devoted son. He calls me every week, I would say. He always checks in on me. Not every mother can say that about their children these days. Patty would nod and smile, and I would feel a warm glow of pride in my chest. My son was a good man. I had raised him right. Looking back now, I wonder if I was blind or just unwilling to see. There were signs, small cracks in the foundation that I chose to ignore. The way Heather would cut our conversations short when I called. The way Derek always seemed distracted when we talked, like his mind was somewhere else. The way Gloria was always mentioned in their stories, always present at holidays and birthday parties, while I was often an afterthought. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I told myself I was being sensitive, being jealous, being unfair. My son loved me. That was all that mattered. Until last week, when a single phone call showed me just how wrong I had been. It was a Wednesday evening around 7 o'clock. I was sitting in my living room watching a cooking show when my phone rang. Derek's name lit up the screen, and I felt the familiar flutter of happiness in my chest. He usually called on Sundays, so a midweek call felt special, like a bonus. His voice was cheerful when I answered, more upbeat than usual. He asked how I was doing, if I had been taking my blood pressure medication, if the weather had been treating me well. Small talk, the kind we always made before getting to the real reason for the call. I played along, telling him about the tomatoes I was growing in my backyard, about how Patty had brought over some homemade jam. Then he got to the point. This weekend, he said, we are having a special family dinner. Heather got promoted at work, and we want to celebrate. Can I borrow your credit card to book the restaurant? I will pay you back next week when I get my paycheck. I did not hesitate. Of course, I said. That is wonderful news about Heather. Where are you going? He named an Italian restaurant downtown, one of those fancy places with white tablecloths and waiters in bow ties. I had heard of it, but never been there myself. It was the kind of place where a meal for two cost more than my weekly grocery budget. But this was a celebration, and I wanted to be part of it. I grabbed my credit card from my purse and read him the number, the expiration date, the security code on the back. He thanked me, told me he loved me, and then said he had to go because Heather was calling him. Wait, I said before he could hang up. What time should I be there, and what should I wear? There was a pause on the other end of the line. A long pause, the kind that makes your stomach tighten without knowing why. Derek cleared his throat. He said, "Let me check with Heather and get back to you." "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Just let me know." He promised he would and hung up. I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone, feeling a strange unease settle over me. Something about the way he hesitated, the way he avoided my questions. But I shook it off. He was probably just busy. He would call back later with the details. Thursday came and went without a word from Derek. I checked my phone every hour waiting for a text or a call that never came. By Friday morning, I could not stand the silence anymore. I sent him a message asking about the dinner. His reply came 3 hours later, short and vague. "Still working out the details, Mom. We'll let you know." I tried calling him Friday evening. The phone rang and rang before going to voicemail. I left a message keeping my tone casual, asking him to call me back when he had a chance. He did not call back. I called Heather next, thinking maybe Derek was busy and she could give me the information. She answered on the third ring, sounding distracted. "Oh, hi, Shirley," she said. "Derek is in the shower. I will tell him to call you back." "Okay," I said. "I just wanted to know about tomorrow, the dinner for your promotion." Another pause, shorter this time, but just as uncomfortable. "Right," she said. "Derek will call you. I have to go. The kids need me." The line went dead. I stood in my kitchen, holding my phone, feeling like I had missed something important. Like there was a conversation happening that I was not part of, a secret being kept, that everyone knew except me. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every possibility. Maybe the restaurant was fully booked, and they were looking for another place. Maybe the date had changed, and they were trying to find a new time that worked for everyone. Maybe I was overreacting, creating problems where none existed. But deep down, in a place I did not want to acknowledge, I knew something was wrong. A mother knows these things. We feel them in our bones, in our blood, in the invisible thread that connects us to our children. Something was very, very wrong. Saturday morning arrived, and still no word from Derek. I made myself breakfast, but could not eat. I watered my plants, but could not focus. I kept picking up my phone, putting it down, picking it up again. Around 10 o'clock, I decided I was done waiting. I would not call again. I would not beg for information. If my son wanted to include me, he would reach out. If he did not, well, I would have my answer. Noon came, then 1 o'clock, then 2. The silence stretched on like a rubber band pulled to its breaking point. I sat in my rocking chair by the window, watching the cars pass by on the street, feeling more alone than I had felt since Frank died. Around 3 o'clock that Saturday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. It was Patty, my neighbor, holding a basket of fresh peaches from her tree. She was smiling when I opened the door, but her smile faded when she saw my face. "Shirley," she said, "is everything okay? You look like you have seen a ghost." I forced a smile and invited her in. "Just tired," I told her. "Did not sleep well last night." We sat in my living room, and Patty chattered about her grandchildren, about the church bake sale coming up next month, about the new family that had moved in down the street. I nodded along, barely hearing a word she said. My mind was still on Derek, still waiting for a call that never came. Then Patty said something that made my heart stop. By the way, she said casually, "Why are not you at the dinner tonight? I saw on Facebook that Heather is celebrating her promotion. Looks like a fancy place." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean?" Patty looked at me with confusion. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and then handed it to me. Heather posted this about an hour ago, she said. I assumed you would be there. I looked at the screen. My hands started to shake. It was a photograph taken at a restaurant, the same Italian restaurant Derek had mentioned. White tablecloths, candles on the table, expensive-looking dishes arranged artistically on plates. And sitting around that table smiling at the camera were 5 people. Derek, Heather, Madison, Ethan, and Gloria Heather's mother wearing a silk blouse and pearls around her neck. 5 people, not 6. No empty chair waiting for someone who was running late. No place set for a mother who had not yet arrived. Below the photo, Heather had written a caption, "Family dinner to celebrate my promotion. So blessed to have everyone here." Everyone. That word echoed in my head like a scream in an empty room. Everyone was there. Everyone except me. Patty was saying something, but I could not hear her. The room had gone fuzzy at the edges like I was looking at everything through frosted glass. My son had asked for my credit card to pay for a family dinner. A family dinner that I was not invited to. A family dinner where my place had been given to someone else. I do not know how long I sat there staring at that photograph. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. At some point, Patty took the phone from my trembling hands and wrapped her arms around me. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She understood. After Patty left, I sat alone in the growing darkness. I did not turn on the lights. I did not make dinner. I just sat there replaying everything in my mind. Derek's hesitation when I asked about the time. Heather's rushed excuses on the phone. The way they had avoided my questions, dodged my calls, left me hanging in silence. They had never intended to invite me. They had used my money to throw a party that I was not welcome at. And Gloria, that woman who had looked down her nose at my curtains all those years ago, had taken my seat at the table. Later that night, I logged into my bank account. My fingers were numb as I typed in my password. There it was, right at the top of my recent transactions. The Italian restaurant, $487. Nearly $500 for a meal I would never taste with people who had decided I was not part of their family. I stared at that number until my eyes burned. $487. That was more than my monthly electric bill. More than I spent on groceries in 2 weeks. And my son had charged it to my card without a second thought, without any intention of including me in the celebration. The tears finally came around midnight. Not the gentle tears of sadness, but the hot, angry tears of betrayal. I cried for the money I had given over the years, the sacrifices I had made, the love I had poured out so freely. I cried for the woman I used to be, the mother who believed her son would never hurt her. I cried until there was nothing left. When the sun came up Sunday morning, I was still sitting in the same chair. My eyes were swollen. My body ached from hours of tension. But something had shifted inside me. The tears had washed away something, leaving behind a hard, clear certainty. I had spent 8 years giving everything I had to my son and his family. I had asked for nothing in return except love and respect. And in return, I had been treated like I did not exist. Like I was nothing more than a credit card to be swiped when they needed something. No more. The call came around 9 o'clock Sunday morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table drinking coffee that had gone cold when Derek's name appeared on my phone screen. I let it ring 3 times before I answered. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice bright and casual, as if nothing had happened. "How are you doing?" I did not respond right away. I let the silence stretch between us long and uncomfortable. Finally, I spoke. "How was the dinner?" I could almost hear him flinch on the other end of the line. "Oh, it was great," he said quickly. Really nice. Heather was so happy. Was she? I said flatly. That is wonderful. More silence. Derek cleared his throat. So, I wanted to let you know that I will pay you back for the restaurant. Next week when I get paid. I took a deep breath. Before we talk about the money, I said I have a question for you. Why was I not there? The pause that followed felt like an eternity. I could hear Derek breathing, could almost see him scrambling for an excuse. Mom, he finally said it was supposed to be a small dinner. Just immediate family. I am your mother, I said slowly, my voice steady, despite the storm raging inside me. I am not immediate family. He stumbled over his words. No, I mean, yes, of course you are. It is just that Heather's mom really wanted to be there, and we did not want to make it too big, and I thought you would understand. Let me make sure I understand correctly, I said. You asked me for my credit card to pay for a family dinner. You let me believe I was invited. And then you took my money, used it to pay for a meal that cost almost $500, and you did not even save me a seat at the table. Mom, it is not like that, Derek protested. We were going to tell you. We just did not know how. How to tell me what? That I was not good enough to sit next to Gloria. That my presence would ruin Heather's celebration? No, Derek said, his voice rising. You are making this bigger than it needs to be. It was one dinner. That sentence hit me like a slap across the face. One dinner. As if the dinner itself was the problem. As if the years of giving, sacrificing, and being taken for granted meant nothing at all. Let me ask you something else, I said, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. When you were deciding who to invite, did you think about me at all? Did my name even come up? The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. I thought so, I said. You know, Derek, I have given you and your family everything I have. Money, time, love. I never asked for anything in return except to be part of your life. But apparently, that was too much to ask. Mom, please, Derek said, and now there was desperation in his voice. Do not be like this. Heather feels bad. We both do. If Heather felt bad, I said she would have called me herself. But she did not. Did she? Because to her, I am not family. I am just the woman with the credit card. The words hung in the air between us. I could hear Derek struggling, trying to find something to say that would make this better. But there was nothing. No excuse could erase what they had done. No apology could undo the hurt. I need to go, I said finally. We will talk later. I hung up before he could respond. Then I sat very still, feeling the weight of what had just happened settle over me. I had confronted my son. I had spoken my truth. And for the first time in a long time, I did not feel like a victim. I felt like a woman who had finally opened her eyes. But I was not done, not by a long shot. I picked up my phone again and dialed the number for my bank. A pleasant, automated voice answered, offering me a menu of options. I pressed the button for customer service and waited. When the representative came on the line, I told her I wanted to cancel my credit card and request a new one with a different number. She asked if my card had been lost or stolen. No, I said. I just need to make sure that only I have access to it from now on. The representative processed my request without further questions. Within a few minutes, my old card was deactivated. A new one would arrive in 7 to 10 business days. Only I would know the number. After I hung up with the bank, I went to my desk and pulled out a notebook. For the next hour, I wrote down every dollar I had given to Derek and his family over the past 8 years. The down payment for their house, the car I bought him, the medical bills I covered, the countless smaller amounts that had added up over time. The total was staggering: $43,750. Nearly $44,000 gone. Not lost exactly because I had given it willingly, but given with the understanding that I was part of the family, that my generosity would be met with love and respect in return. I looked at that number for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and sent Derek a text message. I kept it short and to the point. I have canceled my old credit card and requested a new one. The amount for the dinner was $487. Please transfer that amount to my account by the end of the week. No explanation, no accusations, no plea for understanding. Just the facts. I sent the message and put down my phone. Then I walked to my window and looked out at the street. The sun was shining. Birds were singing in the trees. The world kept turning indifferent to my pain. But for the first time in days, I felt something other than hurt. I felt strong. I had taken action. I had drawn a line. And whatever happened next, I knew that I would never let anyone treat me that way again. Derek's response came within minutes of my text. My phone buzzed with incoming calls and messages one after another like a machine gun firing. I did not answer any of them. The first text said, "Mom, what are you doing?" "Why did you cancel your card?" The second, "This is ridiculous. Can we please talk about this like adults?" The third, "I said I would pay you back. Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" I read each message without responding. There was nothing to say that I had not already said. He knew what he had done. Whether he admitted it to himself was another matter entirely. Around noon, Heather called. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, I listened to her message. Her voice was sharp, irritated. "Shirley," she said, "Derek told me what is going on. I think you are overreacting. It was just a dinner. We did not mean to hurt your feelings. Can you please stop making this into something bigger than it is?" I deleted the message without saving it. An hour later, a number I did not recognize appeared on my screen. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was crisp and cultured, dripping with condescension. "Shirley, this is Gloria, Heather's mother." I knew exactly who she was. "Hello, Gloria. I understand there has been some kind of misunderstanding about the dinner last night," she said. "I want you to know that I had no idea about the payment arrangements. I assumed Derek and Heather were covering it themselves." I kept my voice calm. "Did you know I was not invited?" A pause. "Well," she said carefully, "I understood it was meant to be a small gathering. Just the immediate family." There was that phrase again. Immediate family. As if I was some distant relative, some outsider with no claim to my own son. "Gloria," I said, "let me ask you something. If it had been Heather paying for a dinner with her credit card, and she was not invited while I took her seat at the table, how would you feel?" The silence on the other end was deafening. "I thought so," I said. "I do not have a problem with you, Gloria. You were invited. You had every right to be there. But I also had every right to be there, and I was not. And then I found out that I had paid for the dinner that excluded me. So you can understand why I am upset. I suppose when you put it that way," Gloria said slowly, "it does seem rather thoughtless." "Thoughtless is a kind word for it," I replied. "Have a good day, Gloria." I hung up before she could respond. For a moment, I felt a small spark of satisfaction. I had spoken my truth to the woman who had always made me feel inferior. And she had not had a single word to say in response. That evening, around 7 o'clock, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Derek standing on my porch alone. He looked tired, his shoulders slumped, his hands shoved into his pockets. For a moment, I felt the old familiar urge to open the door, and pull him into my arms to tell him everything was okay, to smooth over the conflict and restore peace. But I did not. Instead, I took a deep breath and opened the door just wide enough to see him clearly. "Mom," he said, "can I come in?" I stepped back and let him enter. He walked into the living room and stood there awkwardly, looking around, as if he had never seen the place before. I did not invite him to sit down. "I came to apologize," he said finally. "What we did was wrong. I should have invited you. I should have stood up to Heather when she suggested we keep it small. I should have done a lot of things differently." I watched him carefully. "Yes," I said, "you should have." He ran a hand through his hair. "I do not know what else to say, Mom. I messed up. I know that now. Can we please just move past this?" I shook my head slowly. "Derek, this is not about one dinner. This is about years of me giving and never getting anything back except excuses. You have borrowed money you never repaid. You have canceled plans at the last minute. You have let Heather treat me like a stranger in my own son's house. And through all of it, I have said nothing because I did not want to cause problems. I did not want to lose you." "You are not going to lose me," he said quickly. "You are my mother." "Then act like it," I said, and my voice broke for the first time. "Act like I am your mother. Not just when you need money or a babysitter. Not just when it is convenient for you. All the time." Derek stood there, his face pale, his eyes glistening. I could see that my words had finally gotten through to him. Whether they would make a difference remained to be seen. "I am going to need some time," I said. "I am not shutting you out, but I need you to understand that things cannot go back to the way they were. I will not let them." "What do you want me to do?" he asked quietly. I thought about it for a moment. "I want you to transfer the money for the dinner by the end of the week," I said. "I want you to think about how you have treated me and whether that is the kind of son you want to be. And I want you to make a choice about what kind of relationship you want us to have going forward. But that choice has to come from you. I am done chasing after people who do not value me." Derek nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay, Mom." He left a few minutes later. I watched his car pull out of the driveway and disappear down the street. Then I closed the door and leaned against it, exhausted, but strangely at peace. I had said what needed to be said. The rest was up to him. The money appeared in my bank account on Tuesday morning. $487 transferred from Derek's account. There was no message attached, no explanation, no apology. Just the numbers on my screen, cold and impersonal. I did not send a thank you. I did not acknowledge the transfer at all. This was not about gratitude. It was about accountability. Heather did not reach out. I was not surprised. Our relationship had always been cordial at best, strained at worst. She tolerated me because she had to, not because she wanted to. And now that I had stood up for myself, she probably saw me as an enemy rather than a nuisance. But something unexpected happened on Wednesday afternoon. My phone rang, and when I looked at the screen, I saw Madison's name. My granddaughter, 12 years old, the one who used to climb into my lap and ask for stories about princesses and dragons. "Hi, Grandma," she said when I answered. Her voice was small, uncertain. "I wanted to ask you something." "Of course, sweetheart," I said, my heart aching at the sound of her voice. "You can ask me anything. Why did not you come to the dinner on Saturday? We waited for you, but Mom said you were busy." I closed my eyes, feeling tears prick at my eyelids. "Oh, honey," I said carefully. There was a mix-up with the plans. I did not know about the dinner in time, but Dad said he told you Madison insisted. He said you knew all about it. I did not want to lie to my granddaughter, but I also did not want to drag her into adult problems. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, I said gently. But I want you to know that I love you very much, and I would never miss spending time with you on purpose. I love you too, Grandma Madison said. Can you come see us soon? Ethan misses you, and I made a drawing I want to show you. I would like that, I said, and I meant it. We will figure out a time, okay? After we hung up, I sat there thinking about what Madison had said. We waited for you. That meant the children had expected me to be there. They had been told I was coming. And then when I did not show up, they were given an excuse that made it seem like my choice. The layers of deception went deeper than I had realized. It was not just that I had been excluded. It was that my absence had been explained away, swept under the rug, turned into something that was my fault, rather than theirs. That night, I called my brother Marcus in Arizona. We had drifted apart over the years, caught up in our own lives and our own problems. But when I heard his voice on the phone, something inside me broke open. I told him everything. The dinner, the credit card, the photograph on Facebook, the confrontation with Derek. I talked for over an hour, barely pausing for breath, and Marcus listened without interrupting. When I finally ran out of words, there was a long silence. Shirley, he said finally, you have been carrying this family on your back for too long. And they have gotten so used to it that they forgot you are a person too. You did the right thing by standing up for yourself. I do not know if Derek will change, I admitted. I do not know if things will ever be the same. Maybe they should not be the same, Marcus said. Maybe they need to be different, better. And if Derek is not willing to put in the work, then at least you will know where you stand. He invited me to come visit him in Arizona. Said he would take me to see the Grand Canyon, something Frank and I had always talked about but never got around to doing. I told him I would think about it, but even as I said the words, I knew I was going to go. I needed to get away from Texas, from the memories, from the weight of everything that had happened. The next week, I started going to a community gardening class that Patty had mentioned months ago. I had always said I was too busy, that I did not have time for hobbies. But now, I had plenty of time, and I needed something to fill it with, besides grief and anger. The class met every Saturday morning at a local community center. There were about 15 people, mostly women my age or older, all of us learning how to grow vegetables and flowers in the Texas heat. The instructor was a cheerful young man named Carlos, who had infinite patience for our questions and mistakes. On my second Saturday, I met Rosa. She was 63, a widow like me, with silver hair and kind eyes. We struck up a conversation during a break, bonding over our shared love of tomatoes and our shared frustration with aphids. By the end of the class, we had exchanged phone numbers. Rosa became my first new friend in years. We started meeting for breakfast every Tuesday at a little diner near my house. She told me about her own struggles with her children, about feeling invisible and taken for granted. I told her about Derek and the dinner. We laughed and cried together, two old women finding comfort in each other's company. For the first time since Frank died, I realized that I did not need my son to complete me. I had spent so long defining myself as Derek's mother that I had forgotten I was also Shirley, a woman with her own needs and desires and dreams. And slowly, painfully, I began to reclaim that part of myself. 2 weeks after the dinner incident, Derek called and asked if we could meet. He sounded different on the phone, more subdued, more thoughtful. I agreed to see him, but I insisted we meet at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. Heather came with him. I was surprised to see her there, but I tried not to show it. We sat at a small table by the window, the three of us, and for a moment, no one spoke. Derek was the first to break the silence. "Mom," he said, "Heather and I have been talking, a lot, about what happened, about how we have been treating you, and we want to apologize." I looked at Heather. She met my eyes, and I could see that something had shifted in her. She did not look defiant or dismissive. She looked genuinely uncomfortable, like someone who had been forced to confront an ugly truth about herself. "Surely," Heather said, "I owe you an apology. Not just for the dinner, but for a lot of things. I have not treated you the way you deserve to be treated. I have let my mother take priority when it should have been you. And I am sorry." I let her words sink in. I appreciated the apology, but I also knew that words were easy. Actions were what mattered. "Thank you for saying that," I said carefully. "I want to believe you mean it, but I need you to understand something. I am not going to accept being treated like an afterthought anymore. If we are going to have a relationship, it has to be based on mutual respect." Derek nodded. "We understand," he said, "and we want to make things right. We want you to be part of our lives. The kids miss you. I miss you." I smiled, but it was a cautious smile. "I miss you too," I said, "but things need to change. And I need to see those changes happen, not just hear about them." We spent the next hour talking about what that would look like. I laid out my boundaries clearly. I would not be lending money anymore unless it was a genuine emergency. I would not be volunteering for babysitting duty every time they needed someone. If there were family events, I expected to be invited not as an afterthought, but as a priority. And I expected to be treated with the same respect they showed Gloria. Derek and Heather agreed to everything. Whether they would follow through remained to be seen. But as we left the coffee shop that day, I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Not the desperate hope of someone clinging to a sinking ship, but the measured hope of someone who had learned to protect herself. That night, I booked my flight to Arizona. I would leave in 3 weeks, spend 10 days with Marcus, see the Grand Canyon, and figure out what I wanted the next chapter of my life to look like. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. 6 months have passed since that dinner. 6 months of small changes, gradual rebuilding, careful trust. Derek transferred the money as promised. He started calling more often, and the calls felt different, more genuine, more interested in my life and not just his own needs. He started bringing the kids to visit on weekends, driving them over himself instead of asking me to come to them. Heather made an effort too in her own way. She texted me occasionally small things like photos of the kids or updates on their school activities. It was not much, but it was more than she had ever done before. And she started including me in plans, making sure I knew about birthdays and holidays with enough notice to actually participate. Madison and Ethan became my joy. I saw them regularly now on my terms. They came to my house, and we baked cookies together, worked in the garden, watched movies on my old couch. They did not ask about the dinner anymore. Children are resilient that way. They just wanted their grandmother's love, and I had plenty of that to give. My trip to Arizona was everything I needed it to be. Marcus and I hiked to the edge of the Grand Canyon, and I stood there looking at that vast, impossible beauty, feeling smaller and larger than I ever had before. Smaller because the world is so big. Larger because I had finally found the courage to see it. I met Rosa for breakfast every Tuesday without fail. We started a little gardening club, just the two of us, planting flowers in each other's yards and trading vegetable recipes. She introduced me to her other friends, women who welcomed me into their circle without question. I had a community now, people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give them. The anger faded, slowly replaced by something calmer. I did not hate Derek or Heather for what they had done. They were flawed people like all of us. They had made mistakes, and they were trying to fix them. Whether our relationship would ever be what it once was, I could not say. But it was becoming something new, something built on honesty, rather than obligation. And Gloria? Well, Gloria kept her distance. I saw her at a birthday party for Ethan, and she nodded at me politely but did not approach. That was fine with me. We did not need to be friends. We just needed to coexist without stepping on each other's toes. Last month, something happened that I did not expect. Derek called me on a Wednesday, not our usual day, and asked if he could come over. He arrived with a bouquet of flowers and a card. "What is this for?" I asked, confused. He handed me the card. I opened it and found a handwritten note inside. It said, "Mom, I know I do not say this enough, but thank you for everything you have done for me, for being patient with me even when I did not deserve it, for teaching me what it means to be a better person. I love you." I stood there in my living room holding that card, and I started to cry. Not the angry tears of betrayal, but the gentle tears of healing. My son had finally seen me, not as a bank account or a babysitter, as his mother, as a person. We hugged for a long time. When we pulled apart, Derek looked at me with wet eyes. "I want you to come to Thanksgiving this year," he said. "At our house. You will be the guest of honor." "What about Gloria?" I asked. Derek shook his head. "She is going to visit her sister in Florida. This year, it is just us. You, me, Heather, and the kids. That is all." I smiled, and this time it reached all the way to my heart. "I would like that," I said. "I will bring my pumpkin pie." He grinned. "The one with the whipped cream on top, the one and only," I said. "This Thanksgiving will be different. I know that now. Not because everything is perfect, but because I have learned to value myself. I have learned that love does not mean erasing yourself for other people. It means showing up as your whole self and letting them decide if they want to meet you there. If you are watching this and you have felt the way I felt, invisible and taken for granted by the people you love most, I want you to know something. You matter. Your feelings matter. Your needs matter. And it is never too late to set boundaries, to demand respect, to stand up for yourself. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect? What did you do? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more people find these videos. And if you are not already subscribed, join our community by clicking subscribe and the notification bell so you do not miss any of our stories. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Sometimes, we all need a reminder that we are worthy of love and respect. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are never too old to start putting yourself first. May your days be filled with peace, your relationships with honesty, and your heart with the love you deserve. Until next time, take care of yourselves.